Okay, hello everyone. Thanks for being here today. So welcome to the Climate Action Accelerator webinar. My name is Margot van Ekern and I work in the Programs and Solutions team along with Béatrice and Sonia. And today's webinar is going to be really around implementing climate and environmental commitments with an introduction to our tools at the Climate Action Accelerator. So first, let's start with some few practical informations. First, we have a presentation with our three speakers today. We have a short question and answer session after each of their interventions. And this webinar will end around 1:30. So just some practical information. This webinar is recorded and it will be available on our website, along with all the presentations that are given. Please also keep, your audio and video is off by default. So if you have questions, please write it in the Q&A section, like in the Zoom application, and I will read them out when due. And also translation is available, I think, in a few languages, but if you want to translate it in French, you can do that via Zoom. And the way you can do that is, so you can click on the top on show captions, or in French, afficher les sous-titres in the bottom bar. So it's the small arrow you can see on top there. And you just select the spoken language that you want to. And so first, with just general information. So we are the Climate Action Accelerator. We're a nonprofit organization that is based in Geneva. And our aim is to act globally and mobilize a critical mass of high social trust organizations. So these range from the aid to the health and higher education and research sectors. Our goal is to scale up implementation of climate solutions within the planetary boundaries, but also to keep global warming below 2 degrees Celsius and avoid the risk of deviating from the goals or objectives necessary to mitigate climate change. Finally, the main goal basically is to help move these three sectors towards greater resilience, radical transformation of their practices, to have an absolute reduction of -50 by 2030, and follow a net zero trajectory in line with the Paris agreements. Our main pillars are three. So the first one is empowering organizations to indeed have their emissions and prepare them for the future through greater resilience with a hub of expertise and resources that we provide. The second would be to champion, so really transform our partners into ambassadors of change so that they can influence their peers and have a domino effect. And the final one is to build a community of action where we share our solutions, we share our best practices, and we scale up the deployment of the solutions. Currently, we have 34 partners on board, ranging from international organizations to local actors, and we'll have more coming. And to come back to this discussion, today's talk will be led by three main ladies. So the focus of the webinar is on the tools from the Climate Action Accelerator, but we'll also have a presentation that is available on cross-sectoral tools to broaden the perspective and to provide insight and tools from the private sector. This will be with Louise Rehbinder. So she's the director and at Exponential Roadmap Initiative. Again, she will present cross-sectoral resources to emissions reduction developed by her initiative. And she will also share experiences and key learning from her work with private sector organizations. A Q&A session will be held and followed by Béatrice Godefroy, which is the Director of Public Policy Engagement. She will present top emission sources of the humanitarian sector and outline the key elements of the playbook that will have emissions by 2030 for the humanitarian sector specifically. And lastly, we have Sonia Schmidt, the head of the solutions team, that will provide an overview of additional open source tools and resources that were developed by our accelerator to provide organizations with inspiration, knowledge on climate solutions, and practical implementation support. So without further ado, Louise, the floor is yours.
Very much, and thank you for having me here. I'm just putting up my slides right now, and I'm actually honored to be here speaking to you, a sector that I deeply admire for the great work that you do, and thank you also Action Accelerator for having me and the collaboration that we have. One of my keywords for the year 2025, I'm quite excited about 2025 and all that it will bring, but collaboration is one of my keywords, and not only between us, but between sectors, cross-sector, within sectors, within the climate action organization world as well. We really need to be aligned and work together to move things forward, especially with the climate that we have in politics and dialogues around climates and so on. So that was my key point, my first key point. Exponential Roadmap Initiative is an organization quite small, but we have great influence, we hope. And we are somewhere in between policy and research and science, and also the real world, which consists of then corporate organizations, companies, and our organizations such as yourselves. We're trying to find the tools and implement the tools that will make it easier to take better climate action. My experience is from working with climate action within big corporate organization. But now I'm working more on the holistic view of strategizing and tactics for ensuring we can have better climate action and seeing what is needed in order to get forward and how to take that on in the best way possible. And our organization, we have just a few, we have a few members, not too many, but we have a good collaboration. Tightly knit is this group. And not only do we want these companies and organizations to accelerate, be better all the time, improve, but also we want to find ways for others to see what good examples there are to work better with climate. This collaborative approach that I once was really needing when I was working at Ericsson, I needed collaboration. I needed to talk to someone about the best ways of working. That's where I found it. It was in this initiative. Now I'm here, try to do the same for others. And what we're following is all the time carbon law towards 1.5. And we may not be able to stay under 1.5. We've already reached it and gone past it in some way, in some measurements already, but that will only make us work harder. And you know about hard work as well. If you do not reach your targets, you're going to have to work harder, because this is a target that we need to be within. We need to be within the safe space for Earth and for our societies. So striving for this all the time, but I will tell you a little bit about how, and also how we're thinking around the 1.5. So what we do within Exponential Roadmap Initiative, it's basically following what we see here. It's the 4-pillar framework. What it means in simple terms is that we're not looking only at scope 1, 2, 3. We are looking further than that. The 1.5 Business Playbook, it consists of guidance for companies and kind of an instruction in a super simple way for how companies can be aligned with a 1.5 degree ambition. But it's not only scope 1, 2, 3 that companies should work with, because that is not what will bring us all the way. And it's not even the best things that companies can do for climate. You need to also look beyond how you can impact society. That is the pillar number 4, the red one here. How can your company ensure that society comes closer to working with climate, or make it easier for society could be with solutions or with information or organizational structures. It can be in different ways how you can impact the society for working with climate action in a better way. And also in the pillar 3 here, looking at what solutions there are. What are the better solutions, the ones that we want to have, and which ones can we get rid of? For example, in a company or an organizational portfolio, what are the good things and what are the less good things, and where do we want to move? And we can see that we need to look at the bigger picture when it comes to working with climate action. We need to reduce emissions scope 1 to 3 for sure, but there are other things that can be done. For example, the simple example of myself as a person, I can reduce my 3 tons of CO2. I can bang my head against the wall. It will be difficult, but what I do here is probably more important, because I will ensure that others can reduce emissions through the support that we bring. So combining those two, both reductions and looking at the bigger picture. And this is good for you. Maybe, I don't know how you think of yourselves of doing services or having products, probably a little bit of both. But you can also look at either yourselves for having this holistic view, but you can also look at your suppliers. For example, in your supply chain, what can they do for you so that you can be better with working with climate? This is a free resource, this 1.5 business playbook. Super simple, super easy to read, for free, downloadable, distributable. And I think it's one of the best to, in a 30-minute session, get a good grip of it, what it takes for an organization to work with 1.5 degree ambition. And another thing, since we have so many resources within ERI, short for Exponential Roadmap Initiative, I'll take a few. And the supplier action guide is another one. I've been talking about this with some of you maybe before, you may have heard it. But one of the first thing and best thing that an organization can do is, of course, ensuring that you work with climate action, but also ensuring that others also do it. So instead of you only, you have maybe 10 companies or organizations or 100 or 1,000 working and taking responsibility for their own climate action. So that's what this is about. So, but your supply chain is going to be very diverse. So getting into the content of this guide already now, it is that you need to take a step back maybe. And that's a tip that I have for you, both when it comes to your own climate action, but also working then with your suppliers, taking a step back to see what you have. How are you going to do it? And that is the real life example. One of the better things I can say is that you need to understand what you're doing, but you also need to understand why you are working in certain ways. Comparing that also with the resources that you have, not overloading yourself, getting a flat result over or small little result over many different areas to work with. You really need to focus on where you can have the best results. So looking at your supply chain, you have a few suppliers that are have high emissions, and then you have the super long tail, especially maybe for you, small local suppliers that you want to engage, need to engage, both for maybe for climate, but also for societal reasons, that you want to promote small businesses in local rural areas. So how are you going to act towards the big corps in your supply chain, and how are you going to act towards the smaller suppliers? So you need to take a step back and see where you can get the best result for different reasons. This guide has some of that information, hopefully giving you an understanding of where to start and how to start. But then talking about smaller suppliers, SME Climate Hub is probably one of the best assets you could have when you have SME, small, medium-sized enterprises in your supply chain, or also as customers or partners. It's a platform where you can make a commitment, and which will take you be part of the Race to Zero campaign. You can calculate, you can do reporting as an SME. But the best thing may be that you get resources and training for small and medium-sized enterprises, ensuring that they know what to do, maybe with energy, how they work with IT assets, or how they work with transportation or commuting, to reduce emissions and actually act. So this is a great resource for the smaller suppliers that you have in your supply chain. But cutting it a little bit short here, because we want to get to the Q&A. As I said in the beginning, we're looking at the reduction of emissions, but we need to look at the bigger picture. So what we're focusing very much on is, of course, what are the good things that we've found, the good examples, the best guidance, best organizational way of working, the best solutions. We're trying to look for those good things that are needed in order to replace the old ways of working, because we will never be able to reduce unless we find something that replaces the old ways of working, or old solutions, old products, old services, old fuels. Without the solutions, we will not be able to reduce. And that's also positive. Lots of companies, they look for the up curves. Where can we excel? Where can we expand? And so on. So keeping it on a little bit of a kind of a positive note. And that's also, for curiosity, the X in exponential. That's in the logo that we have there. It's we will never get anywhere if we don't get the positive green up curve there in the little X, whilst we also focus on reductions. I think that is it, and I want to move into questions, not taking too much of the time here.
Yeah, thank you, Louise, for giving us this deep dive into the Climate Hub and all the resources that you provide, which are extensive and which actually range from many topics like finance, transport, renewables, nature. So now, while everyone writes a few questions maybe in the Q&A section, I have a first follow-up question. Are the tools you presented actually applicable to the humanitarian sector? And also, how do you see the specific role of the humanitarian community that we have when it comes to climate action?
Definitely, they are applicable. They are organizations. They have so many similarities, regardless of where you are in the sector, or if you're small or if you're big. And what you need to do is make sure that you find the resources or the pieces of this puzzle that are best applicable for you. That will differ for everyone, but you will find so many good things for your supply chain, and the business playbook, especially, that's good for you and basically everyone, every company, small or big.
And knowing this, what is the first thing for you that companies and organizations should start with?
I think right now, because climate action, that was a new topic a few years ago. It has matured so much. So right now, especially with the situation, the global situation with politics and discussions about climate, as I said, I think for companies, organizations, my best tip is to take a step back. Where are we? What are we doing? Why are we doing this? And you have to take the time to do such a step back to get an overview. And when you do decide what to do, you need to be transparent about it internally and externally. This is where we are. This is our difficulties. These are our successes. But you always need to be able to say, and we're doing this because of that. So take your time to get on top of that. It's a good tip.
Okay, yeah, no, that's a good one. And so, yeah, so in terms of us in our community, which is the humanitarian community, what do you think that is their role, and why should they also, act on this and follow also these different tools and resources?
I think humanitarian sector, I think that is a different voice than we have within the private sector that are looking for further profits. And I think you should use that. And I would like to see, from what I come from the big core, but hearing your voice is different from hearing any other customer that you have. So if you use that in a very, I would like to hear personally, in a very fact-based way, and also describing the situation as you see it and what you need in a way that would be understood and attractive for a CEO or a CFO, or any kind of C-level. They like to see numbers. They like to see concrete actions or needs or steps to take. So I would like to hear your voice of what you need. We're doing this. What are you doing to support us? Could be an example.
Okay, well, thank you. I think that's quite clear. So there's not any further question in the chat. So I think that we can go to Bea, and exactly on this note of what the humanitarian community can do, have a bit of an understanding through the playbook. Béatrice, go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much, Margot. And thanks, Louise. It's always very inspiring and humbling to be speaking after Louise and that she had shared this wonderful experience of the Exponential Roadmap Initiative. So I was just about to try and share my screen as well. Hopefully it works. Can you see that?
Yes, it's fine, Béatrice.
Okay.
Perfect.
Perfect. So yeah, zooming now on the humanitarian sector, I think exactly as you said, Louise, you mentioned that it's really important to try and take a step back and get an overview of where we are, where we need to be, what are the resources, etc. So that's what we try to do at Climate Action Accelerator with this sectoral roadmap project. Which you can see on the screen. Actually, it was composed of 4 different publications. And what we wanted to do today is try and introduce to you some of these publications, because we believe they are really very much tools for sustainability managers, for the leadership of humanitarian organizations to try and create space for their climate and environmental transformation internally, but also with this series of publication, we are providing evidence. So really having the possibility to do sort of an evidence-based advocacy for climate and environmental transformation, and to base your prioritization of actions and your approach on actual evidence and capitalization and lessons learned that we got from our work. So you see, mainly going to speak about 3 of those 4 publications. One is the path to climate smart humanitarian action is a sectoral analysis. So we tried and do an estimate of the emissions of the sector and decarbonization level and trajectory towards halving emissions by 2030. So we actually created the modeling, etc., and used the data to create this common picture, a common point of anchorage of where we are in the sector. Again, what are the main sources of emissions and where are our priorities as humanitarian actors. The second publication is the operational playbook for organizations. So this one is based on capitalizing on our work for mainly between 2021 and 2024 with about 15 humanitarian organizations. So we're speaking of international humanitarian organizations mainly because we're focusing mainly on the carbon component. And try really and extract from our work what are the top solutions that if you use them you can address say up to 80 to 90% of your emissions. So try and help organizations to focus on where you can have the most impact, especially as we are in the middle of the climate emergency with looking at the 2030 mark. We have just 6 full years left. And the third publication I'd like to introduce today are the guiding principles that you see at the bottom of the screen. So guiding principles for effective emissions reduction. And let me start actually with this one. We really saw these principles and built these principles as a compass for acceleration. We thought that every organization that wants to be to get started with an ambitious approach to emissions reduction needs to have a point of anchorage in terms of looking at what are the international standards, the best practices that I need to try and align my approach with, but also how can I use some of these best practice and be more effective in my work. So we have listed a number of key principles. Maybe before getting into the principles, let me just try and show you what that leaflet looks like. It's a 12-pager with the introduction of the principles and then a little bit of text. So it's a relatively short document that you can quite easily, I think, use with your board of directors or with your senior leadership to try again and create some very simple but really strong actually understanding and framework for the climate transformation. There's just a few that I would like to highlight, actually, because I think one of the challenge that we may have in the sector versus other sectors, like private sector that Louise was speaking just before, is that we have this constant tension between our humanitarian goals and delivering humanitarian action and putting our energy and our money into it, and decarbonization. And I think when an organization is starting this approach, it has to make very clear with all the stakeholders in the organization that there's no, by no means this approach should be about reducing assistance or reducing the quality, the timeliness, the quantity of assistance for decarbonization purpose, but that we have to try and find the right balance between decarbonization, reducing the impact, and of course humanitarian assistance. And in some instances, actually, decarbonization actions can help increase operational autonomy, operational resilience, etc. So I think this principle is a really important part of the narrative. And two other principles I wanted to highlight is that, as I really hinted at quickly before, that we want to really encourage humanitarian actors to align their practices in emissions reduction on what is out there. So what Louise introduced, and also that approach that is based on IPCC, GHG Greenhouse Gas Protocol, also some organizations like Science-Based Target Initiatives, they have really contributed to create a sort of standard is a big word, but let's say an internationally recognized best practice to be more effective. And those two principles really encourage you to go through this path so that the humanitarian sector actually does not align or disalign with those practices which are the most effective. Okay, coming back to the slide deck now. So this, I was just introducing the principles. Now I'm going to switch to the sectoral analysis that we've done. So again, this analysis really had the objective to provide a common picture. And that common picture, actually, what did it tell us? It told us that we are not a huge sector in terms of emissions. We are 35.3 megaton CO2 equivalent in 2022, sorry, there's my mistake. And that most of our emissions, 75%, unsurprisingly, and like in other sectors, come from procurement of goods, procurement of services, but also cash-based interventions. And looking at the breakdown by type of activity, the food security and agriculture a cluster, so 50 would represent 50% of our emissions, followed by health cluster, nutrition, and then protection, wash, and emergency shelter. So overall, what does it tell us? It really gives us a big sense of where are the priorities in terms of reducing emissions. We applied to this initial baseline some levers to try and see on where actually we can act. And you can always act on two different things. You can act on the quantities, so reducing your consumption, reducing your purchases, etc., but also on the sort of intensity of the items that you use, right? The emission factor, if I may say. So we have identified 11 levers for this analysis, with some of them being extremely important for organizations, like reducing energy consumption by 40%, reallocating air freight to sea freight by 35%, reducing the intensity of procured goods and services by 40%. So these are ambitious yet realistic levers that we applied to our model and trying and create the trajectory of the humanitarian sector for reducing emissions by 2030. So what we see here is that it's I think the main conclusion is that the curve is very steep between now and 2030 to reduce emissions, so that it's even more important, as we were mentioning earlier, to try and prioritize, look at existing solutions, look at identified priorities to try and gain time on our journey. So and to that end, and that's part of the top conclusion that we had on this analysis, we really encourage organizations, and if you're a sustainability manager in an organization, you can use this data actually to create evidence for that, to maximize emissions reduction by 2030 on direct emissions, energy, freight, and travel. These are the ones which you control directly, but also to urgently start acting on procurement, including food. and to really delve into cash, because they might represent 30% of the footprint of some organizations. Okay, so last point I'd like to mention on that analysis, that we did the math as well in terms of how much it costs. And I'm sure, I'm looking at Louise, I'm sure in the private sector, it's also one of the crucial components to validate a roadmap and an approach to emissions reduction. In our sector, we've done the math again with our data from our partners and work we've done with them. What we found was that it costs money, but it's affordable, as you see on the screen, to reduce emissions, especially that if you start with energy, freight, and travel, and you can generate savings really quickly on, you can reinject those savings into funding the rest of your actions, and especially those which are more complex and costly related to procurement. Okay, and the last part, if I have 1 more minute, Margot, or am I running out of time? I'm looking at you.
You have 3.
Oh, perfect.
That's very good.
I wanted to introduce our operational playbook for, so it's actually mainly geared at international humanitarian organizations entering into a decarbonization journey. So this playbook, let me maybe simply show it to you as well, if I may go back onto the internet. So you can download it on our website. In about 4 weeks or so, we will have a digitalized version, so it should be hopefully even more easy to consult. And what we tried and do here, so we have also 4 pillars, but our 4 pillars are very much linked to the methodology and the approach that we take at for an organization at reducing its emission. So what you will find in there is the first pillar, helping you with and providing a methodology with what is the way to build a roadmap for reducing the climate and environmental impact. We have 5 steps, we detail those 5 steps, etc. I think this can be also a very useful tool for a sustainability manager who would like to provide a structure and framework to the plan that he or she is building. The second pillar is about top solutions. I was mentioning earlier, we have identified those top 8 solutions that if applied can help address most of the emissions by 2030. The third pillar, we're looking at enablers. So what can help you move forward faster or more effectively with your implementation. And in this one, we have notably implementation principles, monitoring and reporting framework, etc. And the final one is about the finance. So I'm just going to go quickly to the so that second pillar with the solutions, because it's the main component of the playbook. So you will find for each big domain on solutions, energy and premises, transport, supply chain, a number of important analyses on what does it mean for our sector, what are the challenges, what are the tips for implementation, etc. And then we're zooming on the solutions themselves with their financial analysis, the financial impact analysis, and with different steps and different tips and also good examples for implementing them. So I'm going quickly through it, but just to show you the sort of the number of resources that you can find them. You have also a dedicated section at the end of the playbook with useful resources, and there are a lot of resources out there. So we try and really orient the readers to what we consider are the main resources on this topic. And accelerating again, wanted to show you, so we have in the third pillar this methodology for a roadmap monitoring framework. So this is just a really quick summary. And you find, for instance, a proposition for top 8 indicators that can apply consistently to a variety of organizations. But we are working actually, and we have developed a very detailed monitoring framework. So the link will be done with this framework that will be available soon. Again, the last part is on the financial impact assessment. We are proposing here a step-by-step methodology to apply to your own organization. What we have done, what I showed you just before, like how can you measure, how can you anticipate the investments, the costs, the savings, etc., over a period of 6 or 7 years, or 10 years, whatever the length of your roadmap is, and try and generate some visibility in terms of how much it costs, but also how you can be clever about the sequence that you're creating for implementation. So I think I'm just going to close here. Really hoping that these are helpful resources. Again, I think these sectoral roadmap project tools are really there to help create a common understanding and evidence-based elements to have and really help you create space for these transformations in your organization.
Yeah, thank you, Béatrice, for this thorough explanation, actually, of the challenges that the sector faces. I can imagine that it's hard to do a synthesis of all these documents right now during your webinar. But so hence my question that, so there are a lot of resources out there for our sector, but what is the actual added value of our sectoral roadmap and the playbook as opposed to maybe other resources?
Yeah, thank you. I think, well, two different elements, because indeed there are more and more resources out there, which I think is a very good thing for our sector, because there is a great demand for tools. Most organizations have now signed the climate charter the climate and environmental charter for humanitarian organizations. Most of them have made other sort of commitments. For instance, in France, there is the Déclaration d'engagement that has been done. But then it's very much about how you operationalize your commitments, right? And so what we found speaking to organizations, partners or non-partners, is that they really need those tools and this very practical support. So it's really good news that there are more and more of these tools available. I really also encourage our listeners, actually our audience, to reach out to the Climate Charter Secretariat, who is actually trying to provide visibility for these different tools and to orient organizations to what tools and what organizations can be a resource for them. So, but the specificity, I would say, of our tools is that we focus very much, at least for the sectoral roadmap, on decarbonisation. So it's not like a series of publication on the overall sort of climate stakes for the humanitarian sector. It's like, how do you do decarbonisation as a humanitarian organization? And the second specificity is that, as I mentioned, it's evidence-based. So we created evidence, we created the data for an analysis for the sectoral level aspects. And we also generated data from capitalizing from the work with our partners. So it's very tangible and very tailor-made to humanitarian organizations. Of course, and there is a lot of inspiration, again, between the work of Exponential Roadmap and what we've been doing. Overall, when you look at switching to renewable energy or reducing travel, well, let's say 80% is not specific to the humanitarian sector. It's just like a solution that applies across the board. But what we tried and worked on is those 20% which are so specific to the humanitarian sector. We have security stakes in the field. We have access to very different markets when it comes to the energy grid, depending whether you are in Sudan or whether you are in Ukraine, etc. So I think that's the sort of elements that we try to carve out in our work.
Okay, well, thank you, Béatrice. We have a few more questions, but I think we will just move on with but very interesting. Thank you. So we can find all the resources online. So yeah, so Sonia, now you're going to talk to us about the different solutions that we offer, and yeah.
Thank you, Margot. Just bear with me a second whilst I pull up the slides. Voila. So hello, everyone. My name is Sonia. I'm leading the solutions team at the Climate Action Accelerator, which is the technical support team for our partners. And we're also responsible for the open source solutions hub. So before I dive into the tools and the fact sheets that are available on the website, just a short sort of introduction into the rationale of why are we developing all these tools. So we when we started the work, we really analyzed sort of the landscape. So at the time, it's really about the lack of the outcome is really that there's a lack of centralized repository of climate solutions for organizations, and specifically also tailored to our focus sectors, a lack of access to practical tools, and also a lack of inspiring examples by peers. And we really also see the importance of being able to talk to peers and be inspired by what they're doing. So our approach is really with an open source mindset. So everything we do is published open source on our website. Our partners also, when they sign the partnership agreement with us, also agree to be sharing key outcomes and tools and documents that were developed as part of our collaboration online. And it's also about developing this community of partners and engaging with a broader network. And hence also, we try to keep links with organizations such as Exponential Roadmap that allow us to look beyond our sectors. So it's really about an open source logic. It's about accelerating the uptake of solutions. It's about, you don't have to look for a good procurement policy or a travel policy. Part of the legwork of doing research, we try to take away from you so that you can really focus on the implementation part. And as I said, promoting inspiring examples. Just a short overview, and I go into more detail for most of those. So on our website, on the Solutions Hub, you find a generic solutions list, solution fact sheets. These are really about providing sort of a general understanding of a topic or a climate solution. And then we have more practical tools that help with implementation. So these are in the form of toolkits that we started to develop, and we published already 4, and 1 will be published next week on summarisation. Travel, good office practice, procurement is already available. And then, as you participate today, we also organize webinars, and you can find them. You can find the replays of currently 13 webinars also on our website, and re-listen to talks from peers or also other organizations on our website. So I want to do a short sort of deep dive into different resources that are available. And I'm also going to show them to you. So based on the work that we did with our partners, we developed a generic solutions list. It's quite simply an Excel file that you can download from our website, where we basically put together a repository of solutions that were developed as part of the roadmaps we developed with partners. So you can really basically, adapt this solutions list if you want to work on your own strategic plan, and basically just copy paste it. You always find a link to solution fact sheets as they're available. And I would also encourage you to have a look at the roadmaps that have already been published. I think it's a great source of inspiration. We have quite a few from different types of organizations. So, you can choose organizations that are somewhat similar to your own, and basically be inspired about, how they defined their climate roadmap and which solutions they used. So that's for the generic solutions list and the partner roadmaps. As mentioned, we also publish solution fact sheets. Again, everything is centralized on our website. I'm going to show you one as well on air travel reduction. So here the idea is really that you get a quick overview about the climate solution. So why is this important? Like a very short text just to give an understanding. Then some key figures that could be useful either, to raise internal awareness with leadership, or in an awareness raising session with staff that should help you bring some messages across. And then you'll always find some key actions with a very short description. It's not going into a lot of detail, but the idea is that you get a first overview of what should be done in order to achieve a solution. And then there's elements to consider, success stories, so inspiring success stories. We really also try to go beyond the humanitarian or the health sectors, and also integrate examples from the private sector. So you're able to find a relatively diverse range of success stories, again, that you can use internally. And then you'll find tools and good practices, as well as further reading. You will also find a quick and easy win document. So, once you sort of, as an organization, or even as a green team within an organization, you took the decision to, I want to get moving in terms of climate action, but I don't know where to start, or there is no strategic roadmap in place. Once you get a bit of an overview of the topic, using different resources, using the fact sheets, we also put together for you a quick and easy win document where there's 10 actions that are basically no regret actions. You can just get started whilst preparing a more strategic approach, because we often get questions, we want to do something as an organization, but we don't know where to start. The mountain to climb is basically too big. So here is some inspiration, what you can do to get started on climate action. And then the toolkits, they are really about practical implementation. They go much deeper into the topics than the fact sheets do. The fact sheets, it's about understanding. And the toolkits are really, oh, I want to reduce travel. How do I go about? Which tools are available to analyze my travel data? Which tools can I use to plan meetings so that I get the best meeting location with the least participant travel? They feature checklists, they feature policy templates. It's really, there's actually quite a wealth of information in these toolkits. Some of them we developed in partnership with other organizations, or they already have been working on this, and we really want to avoid duplication. So one is we developed in partnership with the Fleet Forum, and the upcoming solarization toolkit we developed in partnership with Électriciens Sans Frontières, so Electricians Without Borders. And we also, reference resources that are already available. So you will also find some exponential roadmap resources, notably in the procurement toolkit. So we really try to gather existing documents and tools, and wherever we feel there's a need for something new, then we just go and develop it. But we really try wherever we can to avoid duplication. I'm quickly going to show you the travel toolkit. Yeah, so I'll make it a bit smaller. So you always have a short introduction, and then we try to organize it in sort of a logic way. Part one, preparation, implementation, and additional resources. And you can click on the tabs to navigate the document easily. And then, we always have a rather short sort of explanation of what should be done. And then, you have a list of tools and additional resources at the end. So, we don't want to overload you with text. It's really about, trying to find the relevant information quickly. Then from our health team, there is also the climate vulnerability and capacity assessment tool. So this is really very specific for hospital or primary care facilities in low, medium, and fragile settings. So I'm not going to go into further details. I just want to make you aware about the tool. It's based on WHO guidelines and really operationalized for these structures. And you can find it again on our website. Then just an outlook of some publications from technical projects that are coming up very soon in partnership with ICRC and EPFL at Technical University in Lausanne in Switzerland. We have been working over the last year on a project on life cycle analysis for key items of the humanitarian sector. We will soon be able to publish the first results of 13 high impact items that the technical team analyzed, and we will make available easy to understand summaries per item. So we really focused on making very technical findings, really translating these technical findings into documents that practitioners can understand. We really find there is a gap between, very complicated and detailed life cycle analysis and technical documents. And our goal is really to translate them. And there will be additional resources such as a video. We're working on a decision tree, and these will all be available over the course of 2025. And then a second project was on tackling local plastic pollution from ready-to-use therapeutic food sachets and medical dispensing sachets. And again, here we will soon be publishing the final project results. We have been, regularly communicating in dedicated networks on it, but we will make available some of the key findings of the project soon as well. And then a bit of an outlook. So due to the demand of organizations to have, a sort of accompaniment that is, easy to access in a sort of a capacity building way, we're currently working on developing such a program with the idea of, instead of having a very, individualized support that we have today with our partners, we want to develop collective cycles where we group together multiple organizations and accompany them in the roadmap development or the strategic roadmap development. And so this is currently under preparation with potential onboarding of partners. Could be happening as soon as Q2 2025. So keep, watch out for news on this exciting development. That was it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sonia, for walking us through all these practical tools that the Climate Action Accelerator offers. I think you portrayed quite well that 2024 was marked by a lot of publications of tools to be used, and 2025 even more. Following this, I have a question. What advice do you think you would give organizations that do not have a strategic plan for emissions reduction in place, and what's the first step? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you very much, Margot. Yeah, I think the most important advice is really to get started, to try something, to learn, and then specifically to improve. Also use the resources that are out there. Use the findings from the Playbook on where are key emissions from the sector in order to identify areas to focus on. Try to establish an estimation of the baseline, but if it's not possible, don't get stuck with trying to have the perfect data, but rather base yourself on existing, the Playbook, the sectorial analysis, also roadmaps of our partners. Use them as a source of inspiration, and then basically use the resources that are already available.
Okay, thank you very much. Since we have just a few minutes left, I was wondering if, as our guest speaker, Louise, maybe you have some final remarks that you want to share with us as to what we can do and what should be done now.
First of all, I can just say that I think there are a few sectors that are so very organized. When it comes to research and data and resources, I really think it's just fantastic. So with this, this guidance and the cross-sectoral guidance and the specific guidance, there is so much information that you can have. So one thing is just ensuring that you skim through things and see what is usable for you and your organization to take things forward, because there's so much good things that is out there. So there's not really nowadays lack of information or inspiration, seeing what others have been doing. So just with all of this, you can get very, very far, and plus that little bit of a step back and the as-is picture of you and where you are, you can get quite far with that.
Okay, thank you so much. Maybe Béatrice and Sonia, you also have some remarks you can share with us?
Yeah, thank you, Margot. And no, maybe just I'd like to get back to the first word that you said, with the word collaboration. Is that in addition to, I mean, the resources are there, they're available on these different websites, especially on our website, but on others' website, as we mentioned. But don't get isolated and try and use those platforms and those, there are a few networks of organizations. Climate Action Accelerator is one. We have our community of members, and we reach out beyond our community of partners specifically. But again, there's a Climate Charter Secretariat, you have Joint Initiative, you have many REC, etc. So I think these are really good opportunities to not get isolated and to try and find good ideas as well, but also exchange on specific practices, etc. with your peers. So I fully agree, 2025, year of collaboration.
Thank you, Béatrice. And I will actually build on what you just said. You know, when it comes to collaboration, I also want to highlight really the need to look beyond your specific sector. We talked about procurement and the challenges of decarbonizing emissions from procurement. I think there's a wealth of resources out there that has been developed by the private sector. You know, I really want to highlight again the SME Climate Hub that organizations can use for their own suppliers. So really trying to learn from what has already been done, you know, especially when it comes to procurement, which is cross-sectoral and, you know, a lot of shared suppliers. And I think there's so many resources that can be used. So I wanted to highlight that again. And then a second part, I really want to encourage everyone to share, so listeners, to share their good practices, their case studies, their tools with us. We try our best to have a sort of an overview of what is published and what organizations are doing, but we're always looking out for good information, for documents. So please do not hesitate to drop us a message, and we will be happy to integrate those good practices into our resources.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Sonia, Béatrice, and Louise. As Sonia just stated, if you would like to be also referenced in a fact sheet, if you think that you have also interesting tools, maybe developments, findings that you think we can build on and make benefit the sector, it would be great if you could just send it to us at our contact address. So contact@climateactionaccelerator.org, and we'll make sure to disseminate all the information and the available resources. So thank you everyone for the session today, and I hope that listeners, you had a nice understanding of the tools offered now for implementing actual climate change.
Thank you everyone. Bye bye.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good day.